Last time on the WizardCast.
Excuse me. Pardon me.
Brian, what do you think you're doing?
I'm measuring 6 feet away from you.
Well, that explains the tape measure, but I thought you were trying to find out who booked Parker Harris.
Some things don't seem as important anymore. I mean, hold on though. I need to finish measuring.
Brian, you do understand that we're doing this remotely, right?
Which is why I'm measuring 6 feet from the monitor. I mean, you're just on the other side. I mean, you got a social distance, Mark.
Well, yes. Social distancing during a pandemic is a good thing, but I'm not sure you're quite grasping the concept.
Nonsense. Can't be too careful. And that is why I have plastic wrap coated with hand sanitizer, dividing all 6 feet circles of separation for me.
Brian, this is stupid even for you. Come on, what happened to our original idea for the script? Where did this come from? You know, the one we started writing, the one that was the Batman parody?
Oh, Mark, I've had weeks in isolation and illness to come up with a Batman parody script.
And
I spent those weeks in isolation and being sick trying to come up with something, and all I got is me saying, "I'm Batman," in a gravelly voice.
I mean, that would be pretty funny.
This pandemic has been a little too attention-consuming.
Okay, fine. Let's focus. Bring us back on track.
Okay.
What is that I'm seeing behind you, anyway?
Oh, that? Yeah, that's my conspiracy string board.
I mean, you got a lot of strings. They're all going to one circle there in the middle. That wasn't like that before.
Well, I was pretty sure I was onto something. I mean, nearly solved the whole thing, but I can't read it now.
What? Why?
I sneezed over there a bit ago, and I scrubbed the heck out of it with a bleach solution. Can't be too careful.
And now the conclusion of the WizardCast.
I'm Brian Kwong.
And I'm Mark Ross.
We're Salesforce experts that love talking about technology and Salesforce.
We also love humor. Doesn't mean we're actually good at it.
In the Salesforce community, I'm known as the Salesforce Wizard, likely due to me wearing a wizard hat at Salesforce events.
And I'm known as Salesforce Yoda for pretty much the same reason.
You should see the ears.
We have a passion to help educate and entertain people.
So we've joined forces to create WizardCast.
We've got tips and best practices.
We talk with interesting people.
All mixed with quote-unquote jokes and humor.
Welcome to the WizardCast. What does a baby computer call its father?
What?
Data. Daddy? Data?
Data.
Data?
No. It doesn't work very well. Most people don't here in the U.S. don't call it data. They refer to it as data. You know what? Fine. You can submit jokes to us too. Email us at wizardcast@thewizardnews.com. Or if you're feeling brave or just want to hear your voice on our show, you can leave a voicemail by calling 608-492-0321. Make sure you tell us your name so we can give you the credit for the jokes you deserve.
In all seriousness, folks, I hope everyone is staying safe, staying healthy, staying home if you can, and of course, moisturizing.
Exactly. If you can't, because you're helping the rest of us stay home, by stocking shelves, driving trucks, delivering goods, staffing critical services, or, of course, part of healthcare, thank you so very much. Without you, this would be worse for everyone.
Absolutely. And I also want to say thank you to your listeners, our listeners, assuming we have any left, because it's been so long since we've done an episode. And, you know, there's a copious amount of reasons to it. Part of it's the pandemic. My wife got sick. I got sick. You know, work has been going kind of crazy, as everyone knows.
Largely because of the pandemic.
And, you know, I'm sure everyone out there has been struggling, and thank you for still listening. And now that I've completely bummed everyone out, I feel like we need to tell some jokes before getting to our guests. So, Mark, on to you.
Wait, what?
Tell us a joke. I just told one, so it's your turn.
Well, okay. Family walks into this talent agent's office.
Not that one.
Oh. Well, I've got some others.
Okay.
All right, let me, hang on. Get psyched up here. Hey, yo, you know why don't chefs find coronavirus jokes very funny? They're in bad taste. Oh, let me tell you, I heard the Finland just closed its borders. You know what that means? No one's going to be crossing the finish line anytime soon. Hey, yo, did you hear the joke about the germ? Oh, never mind. I don't want to spread it around. Oh, I'm just getting started.
Was that supposed to be Rodney Dangerfield? Danger Rodney Field.
Danger Rodney Field.
He gets no respect. No respect either.
My impression doesn't get any respect. Oh, what do you call panic buying of sausage and cheese in Germany? A worst case scenario. Hey!
Because the sausage is a worst, yeah. So if that's not Rodney Dangerfield, is that a Rocky after he's had a few beers?
It's Rocky Dangerfield. That's
Rocky Dangerfield.
Yeah. It's Rocky trying to do a Rodney Dangerfield impression.
Yeah. So you're going to hear me in a second with an actual introduction. This was something we recorded a while ago. It seems like a whole different lifetime at this point, but it was a great conversation. She's one of my favorite people out there. And so without further ado, today we welcome the VP Customer and Market Insights. She's responsible for Salesforce's collaboration with their 3 million member customer community for business impact and customer success. Along with the CMI team, she listens to and engages with 30,000 customers every year through focus groups, survey research, live listening, and the Salesforce Idea Exchange. And I'm going to have to do my best now not to do a terrible bad Star Trek impression here. Her mission is to infuse these voices into every product and business decision at Salesforce and close the loop with customers on how their feedback has impacted, and to boldly go where no one has gone before. Sorry, close.
Close enough, Brian.
Welcome, Kristen Engelhardt.
Good morning. Thank you, both of you, for having me. Fun.
Or afternoon or evening, depending on when you're listening to this.
Right?
But we're recording it in the morning, Brian.
True.
Thank you also, by the way, for sharing your amazing podcast platform with other members of my team. You had Scott Allen and Jenny Sachs on to talk about the Idea Exchange.
Who?
Wow.
And you have been very, very generous with your time. So thank you.
Actually, we're very happy to have Scott and Jennifer on here. Mark and I have been fans of the Idea Exchange for a long time. I mean, I think we started even with our first year of podcast doing that Idea Exchange highlight, just trying to share out, hey, look, there's the Idea Exchange. Here's some ideas that are out there you might be interested in.
Thank you. We are
definitely the sort of
grateful for that.
It's definitely the sort of thing when I engage in any kind of product and they don't have something like the Idea Exchange where ideas can be voted up or down. I'm like, well, they're behind the times.
This is why my job is so fun, because we get to create all of these listening and feedback forums for this amazing community. And it has merit and weight, and it's important, and it's an honor. It's actually an honor to be able to do this.
So I know we're going to be talking about something other than the Idea Exchange. We'll leave that to harassing Jennifer and Scott later. But I do have a question from the introduction, even though I'm sure everyone thinks that I came up with this myself. No one believes that. You stated that it was along with the CMI team. What's the CMI team?
That is our shorthand, our internal speak inside baseball for Customer and Market Insights.
Hence the title, Brian.
Okay. CMI.
Well, I didn't want to make assumptions, because you know what they say about assumptions.
What do they say, Brian?
They're often wrong. Okay. Oh, this is terrible. So, Kristen, you're here because I saw you give the keynote presentation at Midwest Dreamin back in August in Chicago. I remember walking away from that and going, wow, that was a really good message. And I think...
Wait, I wasn't there for that, Brian.
I know you weren't there.
What did she talk about?
If I tell you now, that's going to spoil it for the rest of the listeners.
Okay, all right.
You should have been there, Mark.
He should have been.
I'm an employee now.
I was taking
pictures
and posting it to Twitter. I'm surprised you didn't see it. Obviously, you do not monitor my Twitter feed.
I should really be spying on you completely and totally more often.
I mean, I do with you. It's only fair. So,
wait, what?
Never mind. Ignore the camera hole in the Zelda box behind you. Anyways,
you guys are hilarious.
We try. I just love that he looked. So you and I had a conversation and about coming on, and you very readily agreed. And so first, thank you.
Thank you for having me.
The second thing I want to say is, or want to ask you is, can you kind of just walk in? I know you have a very interesting story about how you came to wanting to talk about that topic at Midwest Dreamin.
Sure.
What led you there?
Well, Eric Dreschfield and Denise Carboni, amazing members of the leadership community out in Chicago, approached me and said, would you come and talk about your dream job journey? And they didn't give me a lot of guidance. They just said, would you be the closing keynote and be inspirational? And that was a little overwhelming and a little scary, but very humbling. But I absolutely love this Trailblazer community and the Midwest community in particular. I have a lot of wonderful relationships there. And I went to the community for help, like we all do. I picked up the phone, and one of the first people I called was Jocelyn Fenewald. And I said, I'm going to do this story about my dream job career, help me think through it. What would you do? And she had this really interesting moment that she shared with me. She said, well, all I can tell you is I had a moment like that when I attended, like way back in 2014, a Salesforce women's event. And the theme of the night was, what would you do if you were not afraid? And she said, after that event, me and my business partner sat down and spent the next few days coming up with an idea to start a consulting company, because that was what scared them the most. And in February of 2014, they incorporated Op Mentors as a registered Salesforce and Premier Financial Force partner. And look at them today. And we all know Jocelyn is an amazing leader in the community as well. And that just struck me. What would we all do in our careers if we were not afraid? And I ended up thinking about a few pivotal moments in my own career when I was able to accelerate forward by facing my own fears. But when I talk to people like Rebe and Melissa and Denise and Peter Jenkel, we all had those common moments. And I said, all right, we're all humans. We're all trying to move forward in our lives and transform. And there's something we all share. And it's things like overcoming the fear of I can't, moments when we took a risk, when we tapped into our leadership reserves, or when we just needed to really step back and be a human being at work. And their stories were so powerful. I knew I just needed to share them. And that's how it came to be.
Yeah, this was my attempt, Mark, to give you the ability to chime in. I was keeping my mouth shut for a time because I was there. So, I figured you might have most of the questions.
Thanks for warning me, Brian.
It was in the script. No.
What then did you have to face down specifically? What were those fears that gripped you?
Yeah, because
at least in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, you were always an amazing person with big lofty titles and responsibilities.
That's very kind of you. We all start somewhere, right? And we all grow. And I will share one of the first big transition moments for me. So I've been at Salesforce for 15 years. But if you go back maybe 12 years, we were a much smaller organization at the time. And Parker Harris, our co-founder, asked me to join his leadership team and help him with problems of scale. The scale issues we were dealing with at the time seem sort of laughable now. We had just hired developer number 250. Okay. There's now over 40,000 people at Salesforce, but that number 250 was very significant for us. It shot us into bigger issues of scale that we had not grappled with before. And we also at that moment had completely transitioned our development organization to the agile development methodology. So there was big change management. And I was, of course, honored to take on that role. But I remember having lunch with a friend in the cafeteria, and he's like, wow, you're working for Parker now. How's it going? And I said, I am sick to my stomach every day. Every day. Because I was so afraid of screwing up, right? And my friend said, good, that's exactly where you want to be. If you are not scared, then you're not going to learn anything. And then you're not going to move forward. So you have to push yourself past the point of comfort in order to learn like the next level. And that is super meaningful for me. And that one random lunch conversation has stayed with me, for the following 15 years.
So you're saying there's a balance really that's required to attain excellence, in that you have to be afraid, but overcome the fear.
Because fear is the mind killer.
Fear can be the mind killer. Yeah. But it challenges you to break through and take, what can feel like a radical risk. And I think there's another story that I shared during the keynote about what people do when they're scared. And it's from Rebe, who had this really interesting moment of fear, which she was kind enough to share with me, but also say, yes, tell my story out to the community. And she had been working with a company for a number of years. And she remembers it was yesterday, it was Halloween, and it was a Friday. And she calls it in her mind Black Friday. And she said she was sitting at her desk and she saw the VP of her company walking out to the parking lot to her car with a box. And this had been someone who, was her boss and very buttoned up. And she saw her break down in tears at her car. And she was thinking, well, what's happening? And it turned out there was a series of layoffs that day and 15 other people got fired. And Rebe said, I remember being so terrified that I was going to be fired. And, she was a mother supporting children. And she said it was the most horrible feeling in the world. She said, I can still feel it when I think about it. And she remembers, taking things down from her cubicle and cleaning up her laptop. And she said, it's a horrible, scary feeling to have that type of insecurity and uncertainty in your life because you don't have any control over what's coming next. And she said, all right, I'm going to take control. I'm going to do this Salesforce thing 150%. She had been doing certifications and reading blogs. This is long before Trailhead. And she wrote down on a piece of paper, I'm going to get myself a job in the next 30 days. And she signed up for LinkedIn 30-day free premium. And she went for it. And she got a new job as a Salesforce admin in 15 days. And we all know Rebe's career from here. But she had that moment of fear, different kind of fear, that propelled her to take a big risk. And, none of us like to feel terrified, but look what can happen when, Mark, as you were saying, you address it, deal with it, overcome it.
And there are certainly people who don't feel fear. And that's this idea, right? You hear the word fearless used all the time as if it is some kind of virtue. But what happens to people who don't have that fear?
Well, I can't comment on that because I constantly am pushing myself outside of my comfort zone. Scared all the time. No, I'm not scared all the time, but I am energized by discomfort, and many of us are. And I would say all of the leadership and the members of the community that I have had the honor and privilege of working with over the years, we all share something along those lines. It's probably a sliding continuum, but we all embrace discomfort and ask ourselves, what can we do from here?
Yeah, energized by the discomfort, you said. That's an interesting thing.
So because it's my job to ask questions all day long from all of you all over the world, Mark, I'm going to start with you. When have you been energized by discomfort?
Well,
Brian, you're next, so get ready.
Oh, I have two answers already. I come prepared.
No. I actually had a very similar situation to Rebe. In a previous job, my boss, who was an amazing mentor and a wonderful person, was fired because she essentially said she wouldn't do something that was either not legal or questionably moral. And that was the point at which, for me, I was like, nope. And I had been doing a job that was half Salesforce admin. I was literally half time, the other half I was corporate trainer. And at that point, I was like, no, I need to get a full-time Salesforce job at this point. And that is literally the event that propelled me. That discomfort, that fear is what propelled me into getting the job at what then became Cox Automotive that launched all of this. I would not be here. I would not be doing this if I hadn't done that, and if that hadn't happened.
And are we also grateful, right, for those moments in retrospect?
It's always in retrospect.
Right.
Brian, how about you?
So I have two. The first one's more of tongue in cheek because, as people know, I live in Wisconsin and it is currently a negative 25 wind chill out there. So when I'm out walking, I'm discomforted by the cold that I actually walk faster so I can get back inside.
Oh, that's a cheap answer, Brian.
I told you that was tongue in cheek. The second one was actually way before I even knew Salesforce existed. I used to be a salesperson at a software company, and I got fired. And I was seeing a girl at the time who happens now to be my wife. And she lived in Madison. I lived in La Crosse, which is a 2.5-hour drive away. And so I was driving to Madison every weekend and hoping to find a job before I had gotten fired so we can actually live in the same city. She gave me a choice. She says, well, I'm a nurse. I can come work at the hospital in La Crosse. And that would be really easy for her to get a job. It was a lot harder for the guy who graduated with a PR degree and had 3 years of failed sales experience to get a job anywhere. And I told her no, because I knew that even though I was very comfortable in La Crosse, that if I did not leave, I was not going to go anywhere, both figuratively and literally. So I ended up spending the entire time looking for work in Madison, where she lived. And if that had not happened, I would not have found the job that I absolutely hated and despised and quit after 6 months to take it with a gigantic paycheck to work for a different company that ended up letting me flourish, giving me the opportunity to learn Salesforce, become their Salesforce admin, give me the opportunity to become a developer. And I stayed there for 5 years. And none of that would have happened had I not gotten fired or taken my wife up on her offer to move to the city I was in.
I think what's amazing about both of your stories and the ones I heard and the ones I had the opportunity to share is that shared experience, that commonality is why maybe this conversation resonated a lot with people. I still get tweets and DMs from people telling me, hey, from that conversation, what would you do if you weren't afraid? I presented at Dreamforce this year. I proposed to my husband, all kinds of things. And that is something we all share as humans and professionals and members of this amazing community. And it's incredibly inspiring to me.
So here's my thought. I mean, the idea of what would you do if you were fearless kind of implies that there's always something else that we could be doing. And I think that's kind of a little unrealistic because there's got to be a period of time where you got to be doing and in the mode of where you are at the time, right? Because if you just keep moving to other things, you're not really growing. You're just changing to different aspects. So how do you decide, hey, I've been in this role or in this place or something like this. It's time for me to take that next leap, be uncomfortable, face my fears, and go do something different or add something new?
That's a really good question. And, at its simplest level, you either have an internal catalyst or an external catalyst, right?
What do you mean?
Either you decide in your heart or your mind, I need or want to do something different because of something going on in your life, or you get an outside signal. And I will give you an example of the latter that gave me a sign it was time to change. I had a new boss. This is 5.5 years ago. And on our first day working together, I sat down with him and I was all excited. This is my new boss, chief product officer at Salesforce at the time. And he said, Kristen, I'm thinking about my organizational structure and everyone knows you and everyone likes you. And he was not unkind at all. He was curious and thinking out loud. And he said, I just don't understand what value you bring to the organization. And I sat back in my mind and went, oh,
ouch.
Horrified, questioned everything I'd been doing for 8 or 9 years at a company I loved. But his question was incredibly valuable to me because it forced me to sit back and say, all these things are true, and to really question, what business value am I bringing to this organization? And for those 8 or 9 years in my early days at Salesforce, I had focused on a lot of operational things. Make sure the release trains run on time. Make sure that everyone has the knowledge transfer they need as we grow and scale. And I was very focused on the program management aspects of running our engineering and product business. And all those things are incredibly important, but we had gotten to a point in our organization where essentially that type of leadership skill was, for lack of a better term, a commodity. And lots of people could do that operational piece. What we needed in the organization, particularly with this new leader at the time, was much more innovation. And I sat back and said, you know what? I could be adding more value to this organization. And I had in my portfolio of operations this small thing called the Idea Exchange that was part of our cadence of getting customer input into the product. It was very small at the time, and I loved working on it, but I could only spend a small amount of my time on it. And I said, along those lines of like, what would I do if I could do anything without constraints, is I would make sure we were creating a seat at the table for our customer community in every business and product decision we made. And I thought about it, and I went back to him and I said, I think I should stop doing all these things. I think that I should take this leader over here and put everything in my portfolio under him and let him grow. And I think I should take 3 people and go and pilot a program where we deliberately listen to our customers, not just for product, but for how we bring things to market. What do they need to be successful after that? How is adoption going? How else can we make you successful? And here's all the things that can happen from a business value standpoint when we create that machine with our customers and we grow our businesses together. And he said, that is innovation, that is value, go do it. And those 3 people and myself is the 35-person customer market insights team we have today.
Okay, well, that's a wrap. I mean, that seems like a really nice pin to put on top of the thing. Story's over, nothing more to learn here.
But you asked, how do you know when it's time for a change? And I got a really big wake-up call when my value to the organization was questioned for very good reasons.
All right, so there's a catalyst, right? There are internal catalysts, something where you just don't feel like you're happy where you are, or an external catalyst where someone's questioning what you bring to whatever you're doing. But you sat and you figured, hey, there's this idea exchange thing. I want to go do that. I'm sure there's a lot of other things going on in your world other than the idea exchange. So what was your thought process? How did you come down to say the idea exchange? That's the one I want to focus on.
There is something incredibly powerful about this customer community's voice. And I saw it from my very first week at Salesforce. Before working at Salesforce, I was a market research analyst for a big market research firm. And then I was a product manager for another software company. And one of the experiences that stayed with me through both of those early parts of my career was how much our customers hated the product. They hated it. They freaking hated it. That was
not what I expected.
And it was not what I expected. It doesn't work. I invested my money, my career, my brand on making this investment to transform my business, and it doesn't freaking work. I would say another word, but we're on a podcast.
We have a Steve Mole bleep just in case it happens.
You said Steve Mole bleep. Awesome. Yeah. And everything about the customer community's experience with the Salesforce product from the moment I started was entirely different. And I realized we had something incredibly special, that we had something that did work, that people who were betting their careers and their companies and their brand on was helping them thrive. And this is not like marketing hyperbole. The very first thing I did, my very first project at Salesforce, was to find 5 customers who would demo their implementations at an analyst event in New York. And I thought that was freaking crazy. A, you have implementations that are alive and working. B, you have customers who are willing to share them to the analyst community. This was crazy to me. And I picked up the phone and started calling customers. This is back when we still use the phone. And I ended up having to turn customers away. Customers were offering to fly themselves out to New York to talk about what they had implemented, the fields they had added. This is before a lot of our product portfolio. This is 2004. And I remember sitting in that room with a bunch of analysts going up to these 5 customers. They had their screens up. And I was like, this is something special. We have built something together, not just as a Salesforce bunch of developers in a room, but with this community. And that was, I know it sounds hokey, but that was my guiding light.
So look for the hokiness is what you're saying. That's the takeaway?
It's a very emotional thing, truly. And I got my market signal that I needed to add more value, and I tapped into what was the business value for Salesforce, but what was the business value for our community. And the overlap was creating a listening program where we could grow together.
And the thing is, like, the reason, I believe, the reason that the community was like that then and is still like that today is because Salesforce has continued to foster that by having outreach programs exactly like the ones that you continue to grow and foster and build. So it's unusual to have this, and I would advise this for anybody who's starting up any kind of venture. You know, Salesforce is so focused on values, on what those values are. The whole idea of the V2 mom, right? Like that's.
I'm sorry.
Yes.
No, you got to stop. What's a V2 mom? Because
Oh,
I had to look it up, and I don't do them.
Okay, I'm
This
being
is a
put on the
test.
spot. Yes,
Let's see if we can
exactly.
decode it.
As an employee here, vision, values,
Methods,
method. I thought it was method, obstacles, and
metrics.
metrics. But yes, it's this idea that they know what their values are. They focus on them and they don't lose sight of them. And the value of customer outreach, of providing something for customers, listening to the customers, working with the customers recognize that. They get excited about doing things like that, about sharing with Salesforce, about sharing with the community, because they feel pride not just in themselves, but also in the platform that they're building it on.
Well, that's incredibly gratifying to hear. I will also say, though, that we don't always get it right. And the community always is there to hold up a mirror and say, hey, you missed a value, or you didn't listen enough, or you didn't communicate well enough. And for all the times we don't get it right, we rely on all of you to be that authenticity filter for us, so that we can make sure we're always learning and we're always growing. And we absolutely do not fear the feedback. We have this saying on Team CMI, don't fear the feedback. You know, feedback is a gift.
Fear the feedback.
We don't have the license for that, Brian. Stop.
That sounds like a really great parody that we should absolutely do.
What else should we absolutely make sure we cover for your audience? I stumped you.
Headlights.
No,
like we said, we don't come with questions. We figure them out as we go.
What would your advice be to people who are thinking, well, either I have a catalyst or they're not sure if they have a catalyst? Because sometimes you don't know what you don't know. So are there like some base questions you would have people ask themselves, or some magical philosophy that we should all consider as we look inside ourselves to decide what would we do?
I don't have a magical philosophy, but I do have the inspiration from the community. And I think one of the things that I would offer to anyone is, and I will tell you briefly this story that Melissa Van Dyke told me and also trusted me with to share with the broader community. Because the hardest thing is to tap into your own human reserves, right? I have a catalyst. I don't have a catalyst. Why am I thinking about this? Where is the discomfort? But her advice was be human in a moment of work, right? We all have somewhat of a professional shell in our work worlds, right? And there are times when you just really have to tap into your human self. For Melissa, early on, so those who don't know Melissa Van Dyke, amazing member of the community, and has an amazing career that she's fostered and driven. But early on, when she was doing one of her very first Salesforce implementations, she was very proud when she completed it. She had been communicating with her organization, the Salesforce rollout is coming. Here's the things we're doing. The implementation is days away. It's an hour away. Here it is. We've done it. She really over-rotated on communication, and she felt very, very good about it. And she said she was 24 hours after the implementation. She was walking down the hall at work, like on her way to the bathroom. At the back of the wall of the office, she saw like all of these papers. And she got closer and she's like, what is this? And someone had printed out every single email that she had sent about the Salesforce rollout over a 3-month period and papered the wall. Not in a kind way, but in a way of, look what you've done. And you've inundated us with all this information. And it was like an assault to her, what she thought was a great communication strategy, which was essentially, you screwed up and you forced this on us. And she said she was horrified, of course. It was this public wall. Everyone in the office could see it. Every single email. She had done hundreds of pieces of paper. And she said in that moment, she had such an emotional reaction. She knew exactly who had done it. There had been, you do implementations. There's that one person.
You always know.
You always know. She knew exactly who it was. It was an older person, a person who was more resistant to change. And she decided in that moment not to be a professional, not to have her shell on. She walked right up to the person. She sat down next to her and she said, I am so sorry. I am so sorry that I didn't listen to you enough, that I didn't take your needs into account, and that I did something that made you really uncomfortable. And she said, of course, the woman was completely taken aback. But Melissa said, in that moment, I chose love. Love is not a word we use in the work world very much, right? But Melissa chose a very human moment. She didn't have a plan. She didn't have a magical formula. She wasn't executing on, this is a risk and I need to address it. This is a fear and I need to move forward. She just responded as a human, and she brought her human self to work. And that instinct was amazing because it opened up a door for a conversation with this woman that changed their entire relationship. And of course, she's her amazing self. So she drove a great collaborative partnership from that moment forward. But trusting your instinct, listening to your gut and acting in that moment and just being human, I think was some of the best guidance I ever got. So I share it all the time now.
The idea of facing your fears is something that I think a lot of us do have some resonance with, but I know I have friends and loved ones who have a lot of trouble with that. They can get really crippled by fears, and it's not for them as simple as kind of like psyching up and just, let's do this. It doesn't work. So what advice would you give for someone who maybe needs a little bit more than just their own self-motivation?
Talk to one trusted advisor. Go to one person, just one. Family member, the person you have lunch with at work, someone in your network. I mean, look at this fabulous community. There's at least one person, whether it's online in the Twitter sphere or, live and in person on a Salesforce Saturday, or all of the wonderful community connections that you have all built. Pick just one person and say, I'm not sure what to do here. What would you do? Mm-hmm. And that in itself can feel scary, but it's not complicated. And the the simple step I find is always the easiest. So if you're not a, run to change type of person, you're not quite sure what your gut instinct is telling you, you're totally freaked out, just pick one person, one trusted advisor, and share what's going on. And from that, I have no doubt always comes amazing growth.
So Kristen, you mentioned you've gotten DMs and tweets and everything about people sharing their stories with you. I would imagine you would like to continue hearing stories. So if people would like to reach out to you, what's the best way for them to contact you?
Twitter is awesome. If it's something you want to share with the broader community, tweet away, shout it out.
And your Twitter handle would be?
Toby Engelhardt. If you have your own personal story you want to share, just because I can somehow be a trusted advisor, DM me. I'm super, super easy to reach. And the stories we all have in this community, it's the single most powerful thing that this community has is our stories. Whether you want to share them one-on-one or on a broad stage, that's what I'm here for. And by the way, your podcast is a platform for those stories too.
Yeah, and we would like to hear from. So if you have a story you would like to share, or just a catalyst that you would like to tell us about, a story of how you face fears, and maybe a story how you didn't face a fear, because we're not all perfect, let us know. You can reach us at the WizardCast at thewizardnews.com, or post a comment on the blog for this, which is at thewizardnews.com, or, we have all our contact information in the show notes.
Thank you both so much. You guys are awesome. I loved what you've built. And another time, let's have a conversation about the catalyst that drove you guys to create this.
Oh, no, there was no catalyst for us to drive this. It was Brian's not getting enough airtime. His ego needs to be inflated between dream forces.
And I got roped into it somehow. I don't. No,
I still remember how you got looped into it. I remember very, very crystal clear the conversations that was happening. I believe it was in IRC between Becca Dente, and then I looped you.
I love that.
I had to think about, if I was going to do this with someone, who would I do it with? And only one name came up, but she was not available, so I went with Mark.
All right, you guys, I have to go make the world safe for software as a service. And I know you guys need to do what you're doing out there in the world. Can I just say thank you so, so much for having me. It's such an honor.
Well, thank you for joining us, Kristen. It's been an honor for us.
All right, take care, guys.
WizardCast is produced by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, directed by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, technical administration by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, script writing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, audio editing by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, website maintenance by Brian Kwong and Mark Ross, and our intern this episode was you, the listener. No, that's not a cop-out. Thank you for listening.
And you can't be an intern too? They're already interns. What?
You're all interns. You get an intern. You get an intern. Everyone's getting an intern.
That's a very different meaning you just said. However, if you want to be part of the end credits, just follow us at WizardCast_pod on Twitter.
And since there won't be any more Salesforce events in 2020 that you're going to be able to see us at, reach out to us on social media. One of the things Mark and I were talking about, since we're all stuck at home, is the potential of maybe doing a live stream WizardCast episode. So if that's something you're interested in partaking about, tweet us. WizardCast_pod, and let us know that you're interested so we can actually plan it.
Otherwise, you can also, if you have a joke, interview suggestion, or other comments, you can let us know for that as well. Just call or leave a voice recording at 608-492-0321 or email wizardcast@thewizardnews.com.
And we will be doing an idea exchange highlight episode coming up. So if you have an idea, or seen an idea, or commented on an idea, or voted on an idea, or, well, you get the idea, let us know about it.
Go to bit.ly/idea highlight to submit that idea to us.
And don't forget to subscribe to the WizardCast and receive our next episode automatically.
Please post reviews on Apple Podcasts, aka iTunes, and share this episode. It helps others to hear what you just had to endure.
Or if you are listening on any other podcast app that has any other type of review system, leave us a review there too. It all helps. Once again, I'm Brian.
And I'd tell you a coronavirus joke now, but you'd have to wait 2 weeks to see if you got it.
Well, technically, symptoms were showing within 5 days from exposure. It's
Brian.
5, what?
Finish the episode.
Thanks for listening.
Boy, I tell you, there's so many coronavirus jokes out there. It's a pandemic.
But they're not puns.